Russia notified the U.S. that it will be carrying out its annual nuclear exercises today. The testing begins despite the rapid escalation in nuclear tensions between the Kremlin and Kyiv. So joining us now with more on this is CBS News foreign policy and national security contributor H.R. McMaster. He's also a retired U.S. Army Lieutenant General who served as the 25th National Security Advisor of the United States. Always good to see you, sir. So let's start with these sort of drills. What do they entail, and what is the purpose?
Well, good morning, Anne-Marie and Vlad. Hey, it's theater, right? So this is theater because Putin is under tremendous pressure because of the failed renewed offensive in Ukraine that began on February 24th, and he's under tremendous pressure because of the Ukrainian counteroffensive, the failed mobilization. He's having a real hard time even equipping those that he has mobilized, let alone train them. And so he's under more and more pressure from the far right, the very hyper nationalist group of people and the Siloviki around him, the former KGB and security people that he's surrounded himself with to do more. And so he's rattling his nuclear saber. You saw that with these threats of thinly veiled threats of the use of a tactical nuclear weapon, and now this kind of dirty bomb scenario, as well as these nuclear tests. And he just completed these tests, and you see him sitting behind his desk as if he's in control. Well, he's really not in control of what's going on in Ukraine. So he's trying to create this image that everything's okay.
So, General, as you know, this is an annual drill, but it does come at a time of great uncertainty and escalated nuclear rhetoric in the East. What are the risks of doing this test now? I wonder if you can remind me and our viewers what it was like during the Cold War. Were these tests more common back then?
Well, of course, there were drills and tests and so forth on both sides with more frequency. But we test our systems, they test their systems. This is nothing that is highly unusual. But the timing's important, Vlad, again, because this is really theater. And there's been a lot of nuclear saber rattling from Putin even after the Cold War. I think many people don't remember. Remember in February of 2018, Putin gave that big talk in front of Parliament, in front of the Duma, and in it he had this animated strike against the United States using long-range nuclear missiles and multiple warheads. And the target of that strike was like Mar-a-Lago, Florida. I mean, it was like right toward. And everyone thought that's kind of crazy, but this is what he does is he uses this kind of intimidation to try to accomplish his objectives and intimidate us into responding to his aggression.
I forgot about that video.
Yeah,
but remember how it just looked? It was like this cheesy movie trailer sort of thing.
Yeah.
It was so weird. So let's talk about this suggestion of a dirty bomb. And Russia is saying, Ukraine's planning it. Ukraine is saying that's absolutely not about it. It invited the UN to search certain sites to prove transparency that they're not interested in any sort of dirty bomb plan. But this kind of false flag operation that many people are suggesting this is what Russia is doing. We've seen Russia do this before, something along those lines. I'm thinking about in Syria. How do you advise President Biden to navigate this situation?
Well, I think what he said about that there being devastating consequences for Putin if he were to use any kind of a nuclear weapon or a dirty bomb, and I think the National Security Advisor's statement just a few weeks ago was quite strong on this. When he was on Face the Nation, he said that there would be very severe consequences, and Russia has to know that the United States has a broad range of options available for response. And it doesn't have to be a nuclear response for a nuclear use of a nuclear device or a dirty bomb. It can be a conventional response, and a conventional response, I think, that could strike maybe all the military sites that we can identify, that we've identified in Crimea. It could involve striking all of their Black Sea Fleet, for example. But there would be a range of options, I think, that would be presented to the president, and Putin has to know that he has to fear escalation more than anybody, Anne-Marie. And I think this is just a sign of how desperate he's become, how little he has left in terms of what he can do to dissuade us, but also to dissuade the Ukrainians from continuing their offensive. And so it's rattled the nuclear saber. And the only other thing he really has left besides that is sort of coercion in the energy sector and maybe threats against energy infrastructure. I mean, I think this is why he blew up the Nord Stream 2 pipeline as a sign, well, hey, I can blow up other pipelines too. And it's not a coincidence that he did that on the same day that the pipeline opened between Norway, Denmark, and Poland. And now Norway has become the number one exporter to Europe of natural gas.
So I know you're not a politician, General, but let me ask you about this letter that the House Progressive Caucus withdrew, which called on President Biden to engage in direct diplomacy with Russia. And that letter sparked outrage from other Democratic Party members. So the question for you is, did it show weakening of American resolve? And more importantly, how might Vladimir Putin interpret it?
Well, he could interpret it as weakness, and that's why it's unfortunate. But, hey, we have a democracy, and I think what you saw there is democracy at work. You saw, I think, this unwise letter that could be construed as being weak to Putin and encouraging Putin to continue his murderous campaign. I mean, this is in the midst of him conducting massive missile attacks and drone attacks on residential areas and busy street corners in Ukraine. But I think what you saw is an appropriate reaction from those within the Democratic Party and broadly to provide a corrective to it.
Republicans, too, have sort of been of two minds lately. We heard Kevin McCarthy suggest that, hey, listen, we can't just have a blank check for Ukraine. And then there was pushback from other Republicans saying, hold on a second.
Right.
So I think you're so right, that this is what democracy looks like.
Sure.
Right? It's give and take. A special request for you, though, General. That hat that you have right there behind you, I need you to keep it right there, at least until Friday. Let's start things off right.
Love it. You can tell she's from. Can you tell she's from Philly, General? Can you tell she's from Philly?
Hey, I am too.
I know. I feel like the odd man out here. Always great to have you, General. Thank you so much.
All right, great to be with all of you. Thank you.